Greetings, Ravens. Cleric here. I wanted to talk to you about difficulty in Armored Core, and maybe a little bit of FromSoft or just kind of games in general. This is due to the recent Elden Ring DLC, Shadow of the Erdtree, coming out, and a lot of people complaining how the difficulty is a little bit too much. My goal here isn't to diminish the criticisms or validate them in any way, is maybe to put more of a focus on what I feel might be what's missing in regards to the conversation or discussion, what I think the problem actually might be. The reason why I will talk about this in the context of Armored Core is that this discussion fits right into Armored Core for a variety of reasons. Armored Core as a series has a reputation for being difficult. This comes from a mix of the old school control scheme for many people, and honestly, some of the boss fights and MACs are pretty broken. Now, this is not a new conversation as far as Armored Core goes. You had things like Ultimate Zenaida and Super Aerial Pulverizer and Last Raven. You had things in Armored Core 4 Answer with Occupy Arterial Carpals, where you fought 4 ACs at once, or in the hard version of the mission, you fought 5. Still have problems with those to this day. But I think a couple of the examples I just gave you are the kinds of things I think I can kind of point to a little bit, and people really think about what the actual problem is in these cases. And I don't think it's difficulty. So let's talk about that. What is difficulty? If you look up the definition of difficulty from the Oxford Dictionary, it is the state or condition of being difficult. Thanks, Oxford. So helpful. I'll go with the second definition here, though. I think it's a little more accurate. A thing that is hard to accomplish, deal with, or understand. I feel this characterizes game difficulty pretty well, and especially when it comes to bosses or especially difficult missions. It's hard to accomplish beating a mission or boss. You're having a hard time dealing with the mechanics, or you just can't seem to understand how a fight works to properly engage. So yeah, that definition works. But if you look at that definition, I don't think anyone would honestly have an issue if a game's approach to difficulty was based on these things. We want to feel accomplished when we beat a boss. We want to feel the satisfaction of having that aha moment when we finally understand what we had to do to beat a boss. That is good and fulfilling game design. You as a player want to feel some level of exhilaration for having bested something you were stuck on or couldn't seem to beat for forever. And that is all well and good until we come to what I feel is actually the issue, and what I think most people are actually referring to when they're having a hard time in the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC, and something many people experienced in Armored Core 6. And that isn't difficulty, and that's the fact that the things sometimes just feel unfair. If you look up the definition of unfair, you get a few things here, but the third one is the one I'm looking at. Not following the rules of a game or sport. I don't think people are actually complaining about difficulty when they're talking about these things. I think they feel that some of the fights are unfair, as in what the boss is doing, or how the boss works, or what is required to beat them somehow falls outside the normal rules of engagement for the game. They feel there's not enough openings, they feel they have to dodge all the time, there's no room to properly fit in attacks, or there's no proper approach angle that is even somewhat safe. Things like that do not equate in our brains as just being difficult, we often equate them as simply being unfair. Now sometimes that is just frustration taking over, and really it isn't that unfair. We just have been banging our heads against the same wall over and over again and just having all these problems and not realizing that's the case. But sometimes it really is unfair. Now, I hate to break it to you. If you didn't know this already, I am sorry to be the bearer of bad news. Sometimes, get real close here, the computer cheats. The best example I can give you for this is Street Fighter 2. For those of you who don't know, or who know me, you know my first love, of course, is Armored Core. But my second love, as evidenced by all the fighting and arcade sticks behind me, is fighting games. A few years ago, I did a speed run of Street Fighter 2 for a charity event. One of the donation incentives was for me to beat the game as high difficulty as possible, and based on the number of donations, it would set the star difficulty for the game. Well, unfortunately for me, the max star difficulty was met for that game, and it was an awful experience. For those who aren't very familiar with Street Fighter 2's AI, the computer is cheating. It literally reads your inputs and cheats you at every chance that it can get. Desk is one of my favorite fighting game content creators in general, has a great video going into detail explaining the mechanics and the AI and what happens when you increase the difficulty in that game. Link in the description below. But man, when you watch this game, it'll completely open your eyes to how sometimes game developers develop AI or enemy scaling as far as difficulty goes, and man, does that game cheat you like crazy. Now, with that in mind, let's take an example from Armored Core 6, the Filter Copter. The intro mission boss for Armored Core 6, or the Filter Copter as it became known as later, was infamous for keeping a good number of early reviewers of Armored Core 6 from being able to properly review the game. By the way, the same kind of complaints you're seeing now about Elden Ring's new DLC being too hard are a lot of the same things that were being said about Armored Core 6 last year when the game released. The reason I bring this up is even though I feel this mission does a pretty good job of teaching you the mechanics of the game and your need to think vertically as far as your approach to the mission goes. I even did a whole video about this forever ago, going over the level design aspects of the intro mission to AC6, and for all of its merits, there are two glaring issues with this mission. One is sometimes the AI just straight up cheat in a very specific way. And the other was FromSoft just completely leaving out the fact that ricochet is a thing. As far as cheating goes in this mission, one of the major changes to Armored Core 6 was the inclusion of invisible boundaries for fights and missions. There have been boundaries in previous AC games, sure, but they didn't prevent you from going outside of them, and if you just went past them, you just simply lost. So the boundaries sound like they are there to help players from inadvertently dying, and in all honesty, most of the time they probably are very helpful. But in this boss fight, they are not a good thing. Besides confining you to a very small space to fight the helicopter, this periodically causes the helicopter to go out of bounds, to where you cannot blade him, and the key to beating this boss is to blade him. So with this issue, it is fundamentally unfair that he can go out of bounds where you cannot blade him, which you need to do to properly beat him. And I can see where this could cause some resentment in some players when they keep going to go fight him, when they finally boost up in his face after dodging out some bullets and go to blade him and can't because he's outside and you can't reach him. Now on to Ricochet. The intro level does a great job of explaining various weapon systems, movement, mechanics, and what have you, and it covers essentially all of them, except for one crucial thing, and that is Ricochet. Those of you who don't know, your weapons have an ideal and effective range, and these ranges in combination with the defenses of an AC dictate what distance a weapon will ricochet, and ricochets do next to no damage and are effectively wasted shots. Remember when I mentioned earlier that using your pulse blade is the key to beating the helicopter? The reason that is due to the fact that your rifle you're starting with its ranges and natural cover spots where the helicopter will often sit when you're in cover, puts it in a range where your shots are most of the time just going to ricochet. Players will see and feel like their weapon is useless, and it effectively is. And many new players will think, I have a gun, time to pew pew, the boss dead, when in reality, what you need to do is, I need to fly up and sword copter dead. I hopped into quite a few streams when the game first released last year, and I watched a lot of new players' first time reaction to this intro mission, and I saw many, and I mean many, of them sitting back and just blinking away, only doing a couple damage at a time because their shots were ricocheting, and they were just getting so frustrated with this boss. Now, I don't think that's entirely their fault. That is the fault of the mission design and it not telling you that ricochet even exists. All they had to do was give you a small little section, maybe 30 seconds in the training mission, where it demonstrated getting into effective range to do damage with the rifle. It could have been, I don't know, an enemy sitting behind some weird open barrier and you could shoot through it, but you were doing ineffective damage, so it told you to get closer to do more damage. I don't know. But the fact that didn't happen, I think a lot of players got stuck here between the copter going out of bounds and their bullets just ricocheting, making the fight feel unfair, not feel too difficult. Now, I am not a Souls player. I've never played any of the Souls games, but I have played a whole lot of Armored Core and a lot of other games just in general. From what I have read and on the convos online and seen various articles and seen social media posts, it appears issues with the boss fights and even the PvP in the new DLC is that sometimes there's some things that just feel unfair, and that is being perceived as it being too difficult. That is also why I think there are some people complaining about noobs, I'll put in quotes here, using summons and ashes to defeat bosses as quote-unquote easy mode, because those players manage to beat boss without using those things, or as they say, abusing those things, depending on your perspective. and see those things or people who beat using those things as being unfair, or as that trivializes fights, and they feel the victory wasn't earned, where they feel like their victory was earned by not using those things. Again, none of that evolves around difficulty. It involves around a player's sense of fairness. Fairness in games is what's going to invoke what a lot of people feel is something being too hard or being too difficult, when if we actually take time to think about it, we aren't really complaining about the difficulty of game. We're probably actually thinking about the fact that we think the game's probably just a little bit too unfair in some places. So that's it. It's not the difficulty issues with even Armored Core, it's not the difficulty issues with Elden Ring, or it's not even difficulty issues sometimes in other games in general. It's not usually a difficulty thing. Most likely, if you're having an issue with it, it's probably, and not always, but there's a good chance there could be some things about that are just simply unfair. All right, that's all I have for you in the video today. Thank you all for taking time to watch this video. Please like and subscribe. Coming up this Saturday is our big 8-hour-long stream celebrating hitting 5,000 subs on YouTube. That's where the giveaway announcement is going to happen. The giveaway announcement is going to happen live. Details on the giveaway is below. The giveaway is for one of these. It's an Armored Core, Bandai Namco Armored Core 6 press kit. It contains some cool little Armored Core 6 swag you can't get anywhere else other than these press kits. And yeah, that's the prize for winning that giveaway. Details in the description below. Just watch the video, explain how to do it. And I think that's it for now. I will see you all in the next one.